Thank you all for coming.
Call the meeting to order, and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, call the roll. Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Vittori?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is to approve the agenda addendum items. I have a request to move the purchase of property Hamden to the front of new business.
I so move.
Get a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Mr. Gertz?
I'll abstain on that, John, for political reasons.
This is just
Just the agenda.
the agenda.
Oh, the
Yeah,
agenda.
the
This is
agenda.
just, the agenda.
Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Vittori?
Yes.
And Mr. Barker?
Yes.
All right, next up is approve or amend the meeting minutes from the July board meeting of July 5th, 2016.
Hold on.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Go ahead and call the vote. Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Vittori?
Yes.
And Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Next up is a presentation of the financial statement. Financial statement for the month ended 31 July 2016 for the general fund, beginning fund balance on July 1st, $2,080,685.79. Personnel expenditures of $310,257.50. Vouchers paid $96,113.87. For total expenditures of $406,371.37. Revenue, the month of July, $27,564.51. One item I'd like to make mention of there was we received a donation from the Burton Middlefield Rotary for the installation of 2 fishing docks that we constructed at Walter Seabass Preserve. So, it was a nice donation from them. So that leaves us with an ending fund balance on July 31st, 2016, the general fund of $1,701,878.93. The Land Improvement Fund, beginning fund balance July 1st, 2016, $5,126,020.19. Expenditures of $78,305.69. Revenue $2,377.71. For an ending fund balance in land improvement of $5,050,092.21. Retirement reserve account, beginning fund balance of $57,626.40. Revenue of $24.97 for an ending fund balance of $57,651.37. And in park capital reserve account, beginning fund balance of $2,851,987.29. Revenue of $1,235.65 for an ending fund balance of $2,853,222.94. All right, nothing to show for the K-9 fund. Any questions on the July financial statement? Not, I'll entertain a motion. Well, don't need to. It will be entered into the record. So, all right, thank you. Presentation of vouchers in the month of July. We get there. Any questions on the vouchers for the month of July? entertain a motion to pay the bills.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Dottori, second by Mr. Gertz. Call the vote. Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dottori,
Yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes.
All right, new business. Before we entertain any questions or discussions about the Hamden Township property, we've invited Paul Pira here. Paul's going to do a presentation on some of the biological aspects, some of the things he looks at when he looks at a piece of property in consideration for us. And then he's specifically going to speak to the Hamden Township property. So, Mr. Pira, you're up. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I want to say good morning to everyone. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to speak about science and biology here at the Park District and what I do. Natural resource management is very much involved in and has been over the years in land acquisition. So I'm going to talk about kind of our role here at the Park District and some of the tools that I use when I go out to look at a piece of property. What in the world is the NQEI? It's the Natural Quality Evaluation Index that we use here at the park. We developed that tool. I also use some of the latest technology in GIS, Geographic Information System. So that's an important aspect of looking at land management and land use. And I'm going to give, again, a specific example in Hamden Township there. So basically, it starts out, obviously the director comes to us and we talk, we sit down for a few minutes with the director usually. He lets us know the property and contact information, things like that, and we go over maps, discuss the potential of the property a little bit, and then I schedule a site visit, and I go out for half a day or so, look at the property, do kind of this rapid assessment on it. It depends on the size. Sometimes we go out maybe multiple times to look at the piece of land. Natural Resource Management produces a written report with maps, aerial photos of the natural resources, GPS coordinates and things like that of important areas. Here's an example. This is Observatory Park up here, something I looked at, I think, back in 2008. Piece of property, we produced the written report, and it has lots of nice pictures in it and maps of the forests and habitat types and things like that on it, wetlands and so forth. So Jogga County is over 400 square miles, 50,000 parcels or so. It's a lot of parcels to think about. The big question, obviously, for us at the park here is how to objectively kind of rank these things. How do we distinguish one versus the other? Which one's better? Is this one better naturally speaking, or the quality of it? Is this a better piece of property than A, B, C, D? Which one's better? And how do we prioritize and rank those things? So looking back at kind of historical information on the county, Arthur Herrick, who was a professor at Kent State and a leading kind of conservationist in Ohio in the 60s, in the early 70s, he did a study of the important natural areas through the Ohio Biological Survey. And he looked at the counties and came up with these areas, lists of important places, natural features in the county. I know it's very hard to see. Some of them are like Ansel's Ledges here, Aquila Lake, Fern Lake, Little Mountain. So a lot of these are actually Park District pieces of property now, which is nice. So you look back at historical information. We also have available rare species locations through the Ohio Natural Heritage Database, and that's kept by the DNR here in Ohio. We have access to rare species, endangered, threatened species locations in the county. Of course, we also have in this GIS system, we have maps of all of the lands that are currently protected and conservation easements, things like that, protected through other organizations and things. So we look at that as well. Another neat thing that I have available to me on the desktop here are cover types, basically vegetation layers of northeast Ohio, and that kind of gives me an idea of the quality of the land. So that's available to me for the whole county as well. So biologists, land conservationists, scientists look at a lot of things. Mostly they're worried about wildlife biology and things. They're looking at the size of the parcels, proximity, connectivity to other pieces of conservation lands, rare species, stream quality, forest quality. Potential for development is also something we consider here that I think pretty strongly on. And then underserved townships, do we have a park in that piece, in that township or not? So those are the primary things. How do we go about looking at these then? I mean, how do we rank something and come up with something objective out of all of this? And that was kind of the question put to us. So we came up with something called the NQEI. As a scoring system, it's about 100 points. It's based on 20 different metrics that I use when I go out to look at the piece of property. I look at river and stream health, wetland health, rare species, invasive species, forests, and parcel quality. All of these add up to potential 100 points scoring. I look at streams again just quickly, the types of the substrates, the quality, is it polluted with silt or things like that, I look at that. Wetlands, of course, we're always concerned about. They're some of the most productive ecosystems in the world. Unfortunately, Ohio's lost much of their wetlands. They're important for, obviously groundwater and filters, flood control, and they're excellent wildlife habitats. We're always looking for good quality wetlands. Rare species are another thing that we're very fortunate in this county to have quite a few of them. They're often very good indicators of habitat quality, so they're good canaries in the coal mine, basically. We have small yellow lady slippers, Cypripedium parviflorum. This is one of only 2 places in the whole state of Ohio. We have them in Jaga Park District property protected. Hobblebush, swamp red currant, these are 2 other species of plants that are protected by the Park District and are in very close proximity to the piece of property I'm going to talk about today. One of our feathers in our cap at the Park District is, of course, the native Ohio brook trout. It was almost extinct a few years ago, and through a lot of cooperative efforts with Division of Wildlife, and now we have quite a few protected pieces of property with beautiful streams on them with Ohio native brook trout. So rare species are important. Of course, forests are our primary consideration in conservation for a number of reasons. Size is an important factor when I'm looking at the forest quality. That's a good indicator of species potential. This is just an example of Sunnybrook Preserve and some of the maps I made of forest quality and connectivity. Something called interior forest is important for a lot of wildlife, especially some of the ground nesting songbirds and things like that, wood thrush and scarlet tanagers, things like that need big tracts of forests. And interior forest is especially important. And of course, again, like I said, the connectivity, the size and the shape of the forest is often very important for wildlife sustainability. Also, when I'm out, I'm looking for anything obviously like this, very cool, unique natural features, geology, and I'm fortunate, happy to say that both of these are on Park District properties, so those are protected pieces of land. This one is in Brookfield, Wetlands Gorge area. It's just beautiful, beautiful place. Here's the data sheet that I use. I know I don't expect you to see that, but basically that's a field data sheet. The 20 metrics are over here. 1 to 5, I can score each metric, and you get then the total down here up to a potential 100 points. So I get a 63. What does that mean? I've had that, we've talked about that over the years. Great, so you got a 54, you got a 63. Which one's better? Is it better, really that much better? What's the difference? So we did a few basic kind of statistics on it. This is very basic box plots, and we got a median score. We looked at about 50 properties, and our median score was about 56 points. So that's average. Anything above 62, I start to get really kind of excited about. I say, hey, this is pretty neat. 75% of the properties scored well below that. So I kind of have a narrative that I can come up with break points of something to talk about with people here at the Park District. Well, that piece of property was average, good, or excellent. So that's how we go about that. So I'll give you a specific example. This is the Longwood property, or the property in Hampton Township. It's up in the northern part of the county. Route 6 is up here. This is Bascom Road that ends into it. It's a nice large piece of property. It's almost 200 acres in size. Most of it is in forested or wetland habitat, which is pretty nice. Almost 70% of the land is forest or wetlands. There are some nice meadow habitats as well. 5 ponds on the property, almost 7 acres of ponds, which is pretty nice too. This is again GIS, Geographic Information System. Some the vegetation I was telling you about, I have access to that, so that's how I come up with those statistics on land cover. Again, here's the green is the forest, and swamps are the brown there. Another really neat thing that we have available through GIS is something called LiDAR data, or tree canopy cover. So this is basically, before I even set foot on a piece of property, I can look at the height of the trees and tell you the quality of the forest, the canopy. So these trees here are 75 to 150, 175 feet tall. Some of them rather large trees. These are medium-sized trees, and this is a younger forest over here. So that's a very valuable tool that we use here at the Park District as well. On the piece of property itself, again, like you saw on that LiDAR data, there's some bigger forest stands, upland forests. There's also the younger forests as well mixed into the property. Past land uses are pretty evident. There was an old sugar bush there and a sugar house and things like that were used on the property. Property has, as I said, 5 different ponds, but it also has some nice associated wetlands too. Quite a bit of potential I see on this piece of property for wetland enhancements or wetland creation. So there's really nice opportunities here for habitat enhancement, wildlife management, things like that. Really nice views too, pretty scenic views of land. Natural wetlands abound too on the property. There are these vernal pools in the forested areas, some nice beaver impoundments too, nice marshes on the property. Wildlife habitat in the swamp forests. You see these dead snags, these dead trees are important for cavity nesting songbirds and things like that, so I look for those things. Nice sedge habitat for amphibians and things like that to hide in, and those vernal pools, of course, are important for amphibians to breed in. One of the other very important things about this property is it's the headwaters at the beginning of the Cuyahoga River. You can literally jump right across the Cuyahoga River on this property, so it's pretty neat. All the headwaters, everything starts, and this flows down into Hampton Orchards, the wildlife area. Pretty nice quality stream right here. Again, ponds, great wildlife habitat, wildlife viewing, waterfowl viewing, things like that are a real potential here on this piece of property. So again, connectivity, we always look at that in consideration and priorities in planning the piece of property. Hampton Orchards, this is the wildlife area owned by the Ohio Division of Wildlife, and that's over 800 acres down here, just to the south. Completely borders the property. So together, collectively, this is over 1,000 acres of potentially protected land, which is important for wildlife sustainability and populations and all that kind of stuff. And again, Cuyahoga River starting here. Just immediately to the east is Observatory Park, the green. So within a couple thousand feet is Observatory Park, which is another plus that we tend to highly rank that on that NQEI form. So how did it turn out? What was the score for this piece of property? It scored a 64, which was placed it into the excellent category for us. So we were pretty happy about that. It's always enjoyable to go out and look at nice pieces of property that have real potential for wildlife and as a park itself too. So we recommend it, Natural Resource Management would have a recommendation to go ahead and pursue acquisition of that piece of property. Anything, like I said, above 62 for us is something pretty important that we should pursue. So with that, I'll be happy to entertain any questions or anything like that. If you have something on the piece of property itself, or you'd like to discuss my ad methods and things like that. So,
Yeah, I think that's great for everybody, not only just us to see the process that, you guys take, and I know that you're only one piece of the puzzle, the rest of the team helps too, but it's really enlightening for a lot of people to see what kind of work goes into it.
thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you. So with that, I will entertain a motion for the purchase of the Longo property in Hamden for a price tag of $1.1 million. It will include some of the closing costs that will be the responsibility of John Park District. Mr. Markowitz has prepared a purchase and sale agreement. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to bring it to the table, and then we can open it up for any questions or discussion that the board has, or any questions from Mr. Markowitz.
I so move.
I second.
All right, any questions or any discussions? Dale, you've done quite a few of these for us, so.
Only for 42 years.
Only for 42 years.
So, I thoroughly read through this multiple times, and I didn't see, anything that was alarming, but I had hoped that maybe you could give, in public,
Sure, you know.
yes, that'd be great.
Actually, the agreement that we used here, I would say 99.9% of it remained the same when I gave it to the attorney for the sellers, for the Longo family. They made some very minor changes. This form is something that we've developed for literally decades, that we started with Don Meyer, and then built up as the directors went along. And the basic agreement is a purchase of these two parcels that you saw up there a moment ago. That's great that you did that. It gives us a 60-day period of time to do our due diligence, although we've done a significant amount of due diligence before today, and there isn't a whole lot more that we need to do. There is a 30-day period of time once we've waived any contingencies to be able to close. So I've inserted a November 14th closing date on here. We definitely want to close this year for a lot of different reasons. The sellers also would like for us to close. And the only thing that I anticipate of substance that we'll need to do is a phase 1 type study, which might, depending on what we get results from that phase 1, might need some additional phase 2 type work. We know that there was an oil and gas well on the property many years ago. It was plugged and abandoned in accordance with state regulations. There's reports on that from the state that I was able to pull from their online services. So we have that information. We have a good comfort level that it was inspected and done right, but we still want to do our own due diligence on that. Other than that, I don't see any real issues in the matter. It's a cash transaction, as John said. We are going to pay for the closing costs because that was the agreement we used with the sellers. The only thing that they pay for, although they're not really paying for it, there's a proration of real estate tax that occurs at closing. And even though we're a governmental agency, there's a tax that's paid through the end of this calendar year. Next year, we'll seek our exemption. So the seller will be paying for the taxes up until the date of closing, which should be November 14th. That money will come to us for the first approximately 10 months of the year. We'll get that as a credit. We'll pay it next January when taxes are due. Then we'll seek our exemption for the property. Other than that, it's really, I don't want to call it a standard vanilla contract, but it is for me because I use this even in private transactions. Probably 90% of it's the same. It's very protective for the buyer. A lot of representations and warranties made by the seller here. They've put themselves on the line, their trust to get this done, and they were very accommodative, very cooperative. We got this done very quickly. The agreement was drafted 2 weeks ago, I think, maybe not even, and we have their signature on the agreement. So we're ready to go.
And I saw that they have a couple pieces of machinery there that they will remove by
Correct.
closing date, correct?
Yes. Yeah, and, you know, as you saw, there was the sugar bush there, which will stay there, but we'll do whatever, you know, we want to, let it stay, or if we think it's not safe, we'll take it down. We haven't inspected it yet.
I have not.
Yeah, we get that a lot when we purchase larger parcels. There's a lot of sugar bushes around the county. But it's a great piece of property. It's got, it's right near the state property. It's just a great addition. I do have the agreements signed by the seller, or, yeah, the seller here. So if you make the motion to approve, I have it for you to sign now. And what I will do then is send it to the escrow agent, and we'll get the documents put in escrow. Seller will get a copy, and then our start of due diligence.
If, after the motion, if this goes through, we have a very blanket, are all the dates filled in?
It's filled in here. I have today's date on the first page, and on page 5, I have November 14th for the closing date.
So we can execute with the president of the park board's signature?
Pardon?
Everything else is filled in. We can execute with the signature of the president of the park
On
board?
these, yes.
Yes, everything else is ready to go.
Yes.
All right. So staff is recommending this purchase to the board, and we have a motion, we have a second. I'll go ahead and call the vote to see if we approve. Mrs. Dottori,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
and Mr. Gertz.
I'm going to withdraw any involvement with this.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Mr. Gertz abstains, so motion passes, 2 and 1 abstain. Thank you. Thanks, Dale. Thanks for being here.
Okay. You want to sign these, I think?
I have to send it over.
I would prefer you to do that. I have Steve with me. 2 will remain with you, and I'll take 3.
Thank you, Dale.
To remake it.
Yes. I'll get the signature. Yes.
Thank you, Paul. Any species of particular note out there? Any individual species?
I didn't find, my quick assessment, anything rare or endangered, but right next door to it is literally a couple thousand feet away are, I know, endangered plant populations. So it's very possible that there's plant populations on the property. I haven't done any of the typical, I do about a year's study on a piece of property like that, so I'm sure we'll find probably some good things to do, including bird surveys and plant surveys. So I'm sure there's stuff there.
I'll keep those 2, and I'll take these.
Like you tied there.
Actually, I'm colorblind, so I wasn't sure if it would work today. Does that match?
Yeah, looks good.
Did you come up to say for the, is there a?
No, that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item of business. Thanks, Dale.
Well, please do thank your entire team.
All right, next up is planning and operations update, your monthly report you received from the planning department on the status of construction projects, original construction, bid award, and current construction costs. So Matt's here if you have any questions about Nassau, Station Observatory, Rookery Trails, Orchard Hills Trails, Ruth Cannon Trails, and Belton Forge Farm demolition. Any questions from Matt?
If you could just update us a little bit on Nassau.
Yeah, so I was going to say, on NASA, you can see we did have a small change order for that project. there were some things we had changes relating to railing and code, so there was a slight increase of cost there to that project. The rookery, you'll see kind of the opposite. The current cost went down about $15,000. Initially, the contractor was going to be doing some meadow restoration. Paul and I discussed it. We're actually going to do that in-house. So we